Hello everybody, welcome back to the second part of our replacing the control panel series. So this is part 2 and episode 43 of the YouTube channel that's dedicated to the construction and development of the Lake Erie and North Shore Railroad. This is a big one. There's a lot of good stuff in this. We're going to take you through the wiring diagram. So we'll look at the wiring diagram. We'll explain how a potentiometer works. The difference between a rheostat and a potentiometer. We'll do the converting a power supply so we can use that to run our lights and complete the project. And you'll see how the control panel looks at the end, which I think, if you're like me, I'm pretty pleased with it. Okay, so without further ado, please like and subscribe. So the like button and subscribe to the channel, and I know you're liking it because you're on episode 43, and when we get to episode 50 we're going to have some whole new surprises for everybody. So a few more episodes and then we'll have some excitement. All right, and until then, it's time for some Railroad Soul.
Across the prairies to the sea, they laid the iron for the rails that we ride. They shared their lives, their hearts, and their pride. They had really so.
Okay, so as you can see, I've started to put some of these switches in. Now up to number 4. So I find the switch, and I'm just going to take the bolt off. I put on there so I know where it is. That comes out. Switch goes in. That goes on. Now there's a little ridge, so you know the switch is going in the right way. The little ridge is on the off. So we'll just put that in. I'm not too worried about lining it up with the pole at the moment. I'm not too concerned about how tight this is at the moment, so I will align it when it's in and when the light is in. Just want it tight enough so it kind of holds its position. There. Now on the back, I'll stick the light through. Through the hole here, because we are going to put a little clip on this, make it look nice. And these are the clips. And as you can see, they've got a little area for the light to go through. And then they have little clips here that hold things in place. So what we do is we first of all clip the light in. Just like that. And then we make sure that the clips are not on the wires so that they can compress in when we try to take it through the plastic. This can be a bit challenging sometimes. So hopefully we get this on the first go. what I usually do is grab the wire from behind just to guide it in. Just make sure it's all in the right spot. And then we give it a little push. Sometimes you got to use back end of a screwdriver because these are pretty hard to get in sometimes. And there we go. It's in. Now, I'm just going to turn the track power on. And that'll allow me to show you how this looks with the lights working. And this is the one we just put in. I'm just going to back away from that a little bit so you can see it all. So you can see, it looks pretty cool. And the switches are on. All right, I'll just keep going until I get the switches in, come back, and I'll show you how I put these two in, because these are a bit different. Okay, we're rocking. Rocking and rolling on the train. Okay, so we're continuing on with the wiring of the control panel. Now this is a potentiometer. Now, interestingly, I'll just go through a little bit of the electronics on this and the wiring. It's really simple to wire, but I always want to have a wiring schematic so that in my mind I've got it clear. So this is a potentiometer, and I went in when I first went in, because I always thought that these variable switches were called rheostats. But when I went in to purchase this, the person told me that a rheostat is a control for current, so variable current, whereas potentiometer or a pot is a variable resistor for voltage. So for changing the brightness and dimness of our lighting on our layout, we want to use a potentiometer and not a rheostat. So this is a potentiometer, and what I'm going to do is just draw a picture representing this and give you a little idea of how this thing works and how we're going to wire it up. Okay, so hopefully you can see this okay, but the potentiometer basically looks like this, and there are 3 connectors coming off it, and there is an input and an output when we're using it as a variable resistor. So what happens on the inside is there is a resistor that basically goes like this, and then there is this control here called a wiper, and this wiper basically is like a little stick, like a windshield wiper, that can vary around as you turn the knob. Okay, so the input comes in and you can vary the output. Now, when we're only talking about a variable resistor, like we're talking about now, we don't actually need this other output. We don't need that other wire. Now you can wire these together, or you can just totally ignore it. Now what you can use this for is determining when your pot goes maximum or minimum by which one of these two you wire. But this one is always the output, and that one can be the input, or that one can be the input. So now let's go back to our actual wiring diagram now. So over here we have basically our output transformer, or output supply, or power supply. So power supply. coming out, and we have a positive and a negative. And then this is going to go to the lights. And it's going to flow back. Now, instead of just putting a direct connection to the power supply, we're also going to put in a switch. And we're going to put in our resistor control. So here we have the output, here we have the input. So I'm just basically using the power, the plus side all the way along. So we'll call this the red wire. We'll call this the black wire. Okay, so from the power supply, we'll go to the switch. Then we'll go to the variable resistor or potentiometer, which will then flow to the lights and control the brightness of the lights. Okay, so that's just a brief explanation with a wiring diagram so you can see how we're going to do this. And then remember, it doesn't matter which one of these I hook. I can hook this side as the input and that side is the, like the output is always the center one, but I can use either side. It just depending on which way I'm going to install my pot and which way it turns. Okay, so that goes there like that, and hopefully that explains how this works a little bit, and we'll go wire this up and see how it works. Okay. Okay, so now we got to look for a power supply for our lights. So I found one of these sort of plug-in power supplies, and then we check here. I don't know if you can read that, but this is 12 volts, 1.5 amps. So 12 volt. So you got a 12 volt voltage supply and a 1.5 amps current supply. Now, this 1.5 amps is way higher than what we need for our lights, but remember, it's better to have some in reserve. So this figure, the 1.5 amps, only matters if we draw more than that. Okay, so as long as we're drawing below 1.5 amps, then we're totally safe. So I'm going to try and modify this power supply. So if I modify, we just have to cut this end off and then give it a test to see if it's working. So I'll get my voltmeter out, we'll see how that's working, and then we can use this as the power supply to supply our lights. Okay. Okay, so we've got the end. I'm just gonna cut the end off here, and then we're gonna just try to split this without clipping any of the wires. And then we're just going to spread this out a bit. Now I'm just going to get my strippers. So we've got the stripping tool here. This is the best investment of your life. So these are the tool you need, which will strip those wires. Trying to see the name on these. Doesn't seem to be a name, but anyway, you go into the electronics store and ask them for a wire stripper that looks like this, and get a good pair. Don't get a cheap one, just because you're going to use this a lot. Okay. All right, so I got these wires out now, ready to go. I'm just going to get this plugged in, and come back with a voltmeter. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've got these wires cut now. Got the voltmeter here. Make sure you set your voltmeter because we're going to be measuring voltage. Okay, so we want to have it set at 20. Okay, so we can see once we have it on the voltage, because this is direct current. So the sign with the voltage with the bar and a little dot underneath is direct current. The one with the wiggly bar is alternating current. So this is 12 volts DC. So you make sure you have it hooked to the DC. 20, which is higher than 12. And now what we see is we're getting this transformer is giving us a output about 12.24 or so volts, which is excellent. And the important thing to realize is it's positive, which means this is our red wire here. So we're going to mark that as our red wire with a little piece of masking tape, so that when we hook it up into the actual system, we get the red and the black hooked to the right side. So I'm just going to put that on there as the red. Okay, so now we know how to hook up our power supply. I'll hook that back up just to show you. It's putting out 12 volts. Excellent. So just a quick review. Before you plug it in, make sure that your voltmeter is set right. So that the V with the two lines, one broken, one solid above it is the DC. And this is the area of the DC. You want to check above the voltage that you're using. So we set it on 20. We check the wires. Now let me just show you here if I reverse these, just so you can see what happens. You see now it goes negative. Okay, so that means the red wire is now hooked to the black. Okay, excellent. So I hope that outlines all the stuff with the voltmeter, and we'll get back to the control panel now and see what we can do. Okay, so we're ready to start wiring now. I've got my switch here. I've got my little second-hand units out now. With the switch, what you're going to do is take a file. I'm just going to rough this up. Just on both edges. Okay, and we got that set off on. So I'm just gonna tighten this up a bit so that it's not gonna move too much, because what we're gonna do is we are going to put the red wire that we previously marked. We're going to solder that right here, just like that. Okay, now to do that, I'm going to take the soldering iron, I'm going to put a bit of flux on, and I'm going to pre-tin the soldering iron a bit. Okay. Flex I use is this flux pen, because it's pretty convenient to get into areas that you want. Now we're going to just put a bit of solder on this. Get a bit of solder on the wire itself. Put a bit more on. And we're just going to attach it. I'm going to have to use this. Too shaky these days. Well, you always get the good, bad, and the ugly on here. And sometimes ugly is more what you get than the good or the bad. Okay. Try it again. Okay, that's on there pretty good. Now we're going to take a little red wire that I've already pre-cut and put it on the other side. See if we can get that up there. And sometimes these switches are a bit of a bitch. Excuse my language. You've got to just follow all of the soldering steps. I will put a bit of flux on that one. You can see the difference that the flux makes. All we want is just a little bit on there just to pre-tin that. There we go. We're just going to pre-tin that wire. And we'll bring these together. In a happy marriage, hopefully. Not really pretty like I want it. There we go. It's better. Okay, so now we have our, no, we don't. Always give it a tug. Make sure it's on, nice and solid, because you can have it pull off just like that. I'm actually kind of glad that happened on camera so that you can see that, because that would have been a problem later on, no doubt. That looks better. I'm giving that a pretty good tug now. I don't like the way this one looks. I'm going to give it one more hit. Okay, now I'll hook the got to get the potentiometer set in the right direction here. So we want to have it so and set that is off, that is on. So we're going to put it to these two here. Remembering this is our input and the middle is our output. So let's go through, follow the system here. I'm gonna have to hold that on there. Too shaky to do this. You have to have that constant touch on there. And the weight of that switch is just too much. That's very nice. Okay. So this is our output wire, which I will have to do over at the other bench just because that's coming from the layout. Okay, so what have we done so far? Just like our wiring diagram, we've taken the red wire from our power supply, divided it with a switch, and then hooked it to the input of the potentiometer. Now what I might do, now that I'm thinking about this, I actually might hook another small wire here so that it's not going to be so difficult to solder this. Over at the layout. Let's see if I can hold this in place this time. Okay, looks like we've got it. Okay, move over to the bench, put these in a little bit and see what we can do. Okay, so this is the board now hooked up. This is the back of the board. And you'll see here, it's not a very good pointer. Use one of these. Okay, so this is the power coming in from the lights. Okay, this is the light switch. This is the potentiometer here. It's on a bit of an angle because when you're figuring out how to put the switch, you have to put it on an angle that works. I use some suitcase connectors here to connect the power. Now, you have to remember that when you hooked your lights up, they only work in one direction. And I just happened to pick the wrong wires, so I had to turn these over. So the black's hooking to the red's hooking to the black to make them work, but that was just a 50-50 draw. Over here, this is the back of the Digitrax LocoNet. And then these are all the mesa wires coming from the switches. This is the controller for the turntable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them all back. I'm going to take this, put it back on and screw it together, and then I'll show you the front. Okay, so here it is in all its glory. All hooked up, the end of the table. And I have just saved all of this space. Oh, it's so, feels so good to have this space. Unbelievable. Okay, when I first started this project, you know, I thought, oh, this is going to be a really difficult, long, boring project. But actually, once I got into it, I actually started to enjoy it and had a lot of fun. So I'm going to put on some indicators here. So I'll put an indicator here about the lights and stuff like that. But for the most part, that's done. She's mounted. That's how it looks. Now let's see the all important stuff. Does it work? Okay, so for the lights, I'm going to turn them on. I'm going to turn the potentiator up. Now I want you to look in the, let's just get a, see if those lights come on there when I turn this. Oh, look at that. Oh my God, it works. We can dim and brighten the lights. And then I'm just going to take you way over here. If I can get in, it's about as close as I can get there. And you see the lights in that manufacturing area going on. Okay, so the lights work. Awesome. I've got to turn track power on. Yeah, so let's just bring the whole controller over. Sorry about the dizziness, but I've got my track controller here. Let me just zoom out a bit. Got my track controller, I'm going to plug it in. Let's see if it works. Okay. It's hard to do with one hand. I'm going to click power. And I'm going to click yes. Power's on. So the controller works. That's excellent. Now let's see if these switches work. Yay. Yay. Let's click them all on. Ta-da! Wow. That's amazing. It all works. I'll just shut these off. Look at that, turntables were rolling. Let's do tail. I'm just taking it all the way around for you. And that should start that track going, hopefully. Well, looks like we need a little bit of an adjustment on there. Must have come out of adjustment for because it's not stopping exactly like it's supposed to. Let's go tail. Track 2, head. Anyway, it's working. I may have to adjust it a little bit. And maybe you have to do that occasionally to yours too, once it's been set up for a while. Okay, so we've got our new control panel in place. Everything's working. So I'll put the stickers on it so it'll indicate what's doing what, and then we will get on with the next project. All right, thanks for joining us. Make sure you hit that old subscribe button. If you enjoyed this, press the like, and also talk to any of your friends. Let them know about us, and hopefully they'll join too, and you guys can all help build it together. Bye for now.